By now, you've all probably heard the term weatherization. Sealing up those annoying and eventually expensive drafts in places where your home isn't sealed up quite as perfectly as it could or should be. Many homes in Vermont are aging and leaks and drafty spots are emerging. Or maybe the house wasn't built with an exacting eye for tightness in the first place. Insulating a basement and an attic, along with those leaky windows, can be a quick route to making a home warmer and more comfortable, without turning up the heat and burdening your fuel bill. Right now, Efficiency Vermont, the state utility that specializes in energy conservation, is offering some attractive rebates and incentives to help homeowners finance a weatherization project. Whether you're a do-it-yourself kind of person or prefer to hire a licensed contractor for your project, that money, which you can receive at the back end when a project is completed, can help manage an expenditure that will pay for itself in the long run. So we reached out to Bill Morrissey of Weatherization Works, based in Paulet, Vermont, to walk us through some of the steps.
So in most homes, you'll find that there's very little insulation, particularly in a basement foundation wall. And it's a real important area to treat just to conserve your heat energy and I would argue just to improve comfort. So if Vermonters take on these challenges, and in this instance, we remove some insulation from a box sill, which is where the wood frame is sitting on the foundation wall, and we remove that material, and then we insulate it with closed cell spray foam. So this material is spray applied. You can see that it's all over the wood surfaces and down the foundation walls. It's installed at 3 inches thick. It air seals and insulates, and the material works tremendously in an area where it's cold and damp. It's a fantastic insulation for basements. It's very difficult to do this work not using a product like spray applied foam. There are other insulations, but this gives us an air barrier and a much needed insulation layer that is durable and will seal out the cold and insulate a really important portion of the foundation wall. You might notice that it doesn't extend fully down to the floor, and that's because the biggest bang for the buck is going to be the above grade portion of the foundation wall and then a little bit below grade. So we're typically treating the top 4 feet of a foundation, and that's where the low-hanging fruit is, really. And it's in most homes we go to. There's very few homes that will find that this is adequately insulated. So as we heat air, it's rising up through the shell of the home and exiting through the roof. So it's most important to seal the attic. So treat your attic first, and then a basement, and you'll put the home in a much more neutral pressure plane where you're not forcing so much heat energy out of the house and subsequently dragging cold air in. It isn't rocket science. It just can be very difficult to do this work. You're often in the worst parts of a home where in this project there's a hot air furnace, and an important area to seal is to brush on mastic sealant to coat the joints. This is the first coat. There'll be another one. You can see it's still a little wet, but it's a mastic sealant that will allow this joint to expand and contract as it heats, and it will also help seal that joint, because it's important to deliver the heat energy where you want it. You heated this hot air. You don't want it dumping into the basement willy-nilly, and you also don't want the return air from the furnace pulling from this location, this zone. This isn't the best air in the house, and you really want to pull it from the living space and not from this area. So we try to mastic seal the ductwork so that it better performs and delivers the heat where you want it.
We also had a chance to talk with Jim Goodine, a retired building contractor with more than 40 years of experience in home construction, about why making a push for heating efficiency makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, we try to look at, when we do a home energy audit, we try to look at all of the factors, all the way from the attic all the way down into the basement, around the outside. We looked at health and safety issues, and then we try to make an analysis based on the information and the data that we collect including installation of the blower door to find out how much airflow, how leaky the house is. And we look through all of that information, and in our case, we would always organize it like a list of the items that could be done on the basis of return and how expensive they are. For instance, the first one of the first items is usually putting gaskets on all the electrical outlets. It's cheap. It's something a homeowner can do, and it's pretty effective, very effective. And then down the list, until we get to things that are expensive, like, for instance, windows. Windows are a big item, and they are promoted by window manufacturers, but the payback on them is very, very, very long, and often it makes more sense to try to weather strip those windows rather than replace them. Yeah, the housing stock in Vermont is old for the most part. And what we see in villages is that the giant old homes are getting converted into multifamily housing. And if the tenants are paying their own heat, there's very little incentive for the landlords to upgrade those buildings. That's a sad situation, although some landlords are doing a great job with it. I think that it's a big challenge for people doing energy work to get into some of these older houses. For instance, much easier to insulate a poured concrete foundation than it would be to insulate a stone foundation. Stone foundations are leaky, and they're one of the first things we have to hit when we get on the job. An area that's vulnerable to leakage in every single house is around the sill area, where the concrete foundation or the stone foundation meets the sill area, meets the floor. It's probably one of the first areas that gets done in every house. Crawl spaces are horrible. They're a miserable place to try to get everything sealed up, because you really can't get at a lot of it. Maybe you have about 3 or 4 inches of headroom when you squeeze in there. And fortunately, one of our spray foam guys is a small guy. He will get in there and he'll do his best, but you can well imagine those additions with crawl spaces were not built up to the standard of the original house. They have a very loose foundation, and pipes are all in there for the kitchen addition or bathrooms, whatever they put into that addition, and trying to get at it is no fun.
But time is running out. The rebates and incentives on offer from Efficiency Vermont won't last forever. Right now, you can get a 50% rebate on projects that cost up to $2,000, and that rebate of $1,000 will be available probably through to the end of the year. But if your project is one that costs upwards of $4,000, your 50% rebate, or $2,000, will probably expire sometime later this spring. The rebates are capped at $2,000 per project, so anything above $4,000 will still only yield a $2,000 rebate. For more information about what kinds of projects qualify for rebates, as well as a list of certified contractors, you can visit Efficiency Vermont's website at efficiencyvermont.com. For the GNAT-TV News Project, I'm Andrew McKeever.